once loved now drip with unease, as I step back and at once see the forest for the trees. It won't matter our intentions, our hopes or our plans. What matters is the end result, this book in my hands. No one will know how well we meant, how much we sacrificed, 'cause this story's how we broke the world and couldn't pay the price. So I'll redact and I'll revise, recut the truth and redefine the lies. Step back and see our story through the future's eyes. An agonizing revision made with exact precision. Only alone can I see this vision through. Spare the world and then make it back to you. I've the power to change things, and I know I have to try. And I called it, I knew it, now I've got to pin down why. Put aside your pride, Lucretia. Time you stopped pretending. A story isn't good if we all hate the ending. I've learned that faith is lovely, but it never goes as planned. If you want something done, take it into your own hand. So I'll redact and I'll revise, recut the truth and redefine the lies. Step back and see our story through the future's eyes. An agonizing revision made with exact precision. Only alone can I see this vision through. Spare the world and then make it back to you. They'll be safe, they'll be happy when the past is redacted. Same people and same world, just with some bits subtracted. Give them beaches and sun and a taste of their favorite things. Give them the world and a chance to sample the flavor it brings. Give them crafts and keeps and love and a chance to reset all the pain of the past. The stories and songs and the choices we'd rather forget. So I'll redact and I'll revise, recut the truth and redefine the lies. Step back and see the story through the future's eyes. An agonizing revision made with exact precision. Only alone can I see this vision through. Spare the world, spare the world, and then make it back to you.
Twitch viewers, Ashley Wayne Song, and we're gonna do another crafting. But first, I apologize for that there wasn't any streaming last week. It was just completely nuts. Plus, I'm still trying to get used to the idea of doing this now. Second, Avian, thank you for the host. Though, well, let's see how this goes anyway. Either way, thank you for the host, Avian. And I believe somebody started following me. Darn, I think I forgot their name. Anyway, let's might as well get to it. Also, so that you guys know, except for maybe today, for now, the next few streams, which also probably include the streamings for editing videos, they're going to be dedicated to specific items I'm going to be making, which is, well, long story short, there's usually a farmer's fair and they have all these contests, and usually I enter a couple of them. Of course, because everything's been nuts and I have not been able to focus on much of anything, though thank God I have plenty of products to sell if they ever bring back the Renaissance Fair again. But yeah, well, either way, I'm going to be trying, except for today, I'm going to be trying to stick to specific things and show the tapestry. What the heck are you talking about, right? I'll figure it out later. Anyway, next few streams after today, I'll probably be either focusing on the painting, maybe not sketching, that's gonna take something different. But mostly the painting and something to put together for sewing, which I'll probably do a small toy, since it was gonna be another life-size puppet, but again, everything's just been so nuts around here. Anyway, let's get to it. Just give me a moment to... There's the alert box, and there. Now, obviously, I've got... Yeah, that's one of the bad things about doing this from the laptop. You gotta adjust everything when you're moving around. Oh, the one I did for the fair a few years ago. Maybe in a little bit. In fact, I'll probably post it on the Discord so this way you guys can see. Now, for now, especially since I can't remember if I actually got it on my computer or not, for now, I'm just going to be focusing on what I got going on right here. Now, last time, and I'm still kicking myself for not remembering to try to download that video, so this way I can maybe upload it on YouTube or something. Last time, I showed you guys how I make the little necklaces charms, like the dragon eyes and such. And then obviously, they've already been, and I really gotta learn how to focus on the center. They're basically already hardened, though, because like an idiot, I did not bother to actually read the instructions and thought I remembered correctly. Some of them did get a little burnt. On the back, mostly. I mean, some, that's okay, because at least they're still somewhat sellable. But others, because of how hot, I guess, the bottom got, and thank God I used one of those cooking sheets, the paper ended up getting attached badly. So I definitely can't even make necklaces out of these or sell them. I mean, I technically can make them into necklaces officially, but yeah, they're not going to be sellable. But, and this is where your idea comes in, Avian, because this was actually a good idea, and this is half the reason why I don't half the time throw most of these things away, because they could be used actually somewhat differently. And your idea of putting these on the cover of the books, this is actually going to work out, especially since with these loops, they can actually act as a bit of a binder, if that makes sense. But I'll show you in a little bit. Anyway, other than maybe, I'm obviously going to first coat some of these things with the clear nail polish, so this way they have a better protection and they have a bit of a shine to them. But this is what I'm going to be focusing on today. This is a kind of a trial error of a book. It was a stupid idea, but at least somehow it works. I actually made this with a cardboard and, well, it would be normal paper, but this is actually different. I actually used this rolled up rolls that was used for wrapping paper, like Christmas wrapping paper. Yeah, apparently there's some wrapper papers that come with these rolls that are actually rolled out, not like you find on a tissue, toilet paper or paper towels roll. And I ended up coming up with the idea of maybe turning it into a book, and there you have it, with the faux leather, and the inside is actually fabric, since I figured it would maybe last a bit longer. And plus, the book itself is technically made of cardboard, and that is a bit flimsy, so it came out pretty good, but at the same time, even I have to admit, using cardboard that's pretty flimsy is probably not going to work too much, except for maybe when you're maybe doing this kind of thing with the little kids. I also added these little tabs at the edges, so this way they can, it actually pops out a bit more, making it more nice looking. And I will also show you how I do this little thing, since I got the idea from YouTube. I even added a little something to make it look like an actual binder's book. You probably can't see it through the lighting, but yeah, there we go. There's a little bump to give it more depth. And yeah, that's basically what we're going to focus on. So instead of cardboard, we are actually using plywood or particle wood. I forget exactly what it's called. Obviously, I cut it down, drilled holes, and I sanded down, which I cannot stress. If you're doing something like that, you always use protection for this kind of thing. The eye goggles, cover something in your mouth with those masks, or heaven forbid you don't have any, grab maybe a handkerchief or a bandana to cover your mouth with it. If you have long hair like me, always tie it with maybe a rubber band, so this way it doesn't get into your eye or you don't accidentally cut it. And I cannot stress this part enough. Also, especially depending on what type of wood you're working with. Either make sure you have long sleeves to make sure your arms are covered, and also wear gloves. I cannot stress that enough, especially since, God forbid, you suddenly, when you're using a rotary tool, it suddenly slips from the wood. You definitely don't want to risk cutting yourself like that. Almost ended up doing that myself a few times, and thank God I wore those dopey gloves. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Anyway, before we get to that, or at least in the trials, well, I'm probably going to have to also fix this little one. This is actually what I'm going to be using for the little trial book, and as you can see, I basically have it all mostly set up. It's going to be a little tricky since this is going to be my second time trying this, but at the same time, this is my first time using this idea with the wood, so I don't know how well this is going to come out. But for now, I'm going to be putting clear nail polish on this little one, since the colors are actually a bit bright and it will pop out. And along with this, I'm probably going to be using this ribbon, since it matches with this little charm, and at least it will give the faux leather a nice touch. Of course, I have to fix this a little bit since it's a little loose. Obviously, gotta use glue. And for this, I actually use Gorilla Glue. This is actually very, very handy. There are other types of gel glue, and this thing is empty. Doy. Because then I got plenty. Yeah, another word of advice, make sure you've got plenty of what you need on hand. Even if you have too much, it's best to have extras just in case. Especially if you don't have, and if you have too much of something, at least you have enough for the next time. And trust me, if you do a lot of crafts like I do, half the time when the mood actually hits me, you're definitely going to need a lot of this stuff. And there we go. And obviously, since there is a bit of extra gel on it, I'm going to wipe up a little bit, because we don't want it to look too silly. Okay, and since the glue is going to be drying on this one, I'll just, well, still plan to at least do the coating for some of these things, so I might as well do it on this one, which was originally what I was going to put on this book, but since that little mishap happened, well, to each his own. Now obviously you're going to want to make sure it's evenly coated, and even if you get it on the glass like I tend to do, it's okay. I sometimes think it gives it an extra shine to it, and also a bit of protection. Especially considering that more than half the time when you're touching the glass, it leaves your fingerprints on it. And I'm knucklehead, whatever. Either way, I know you probably technically don't need to put clear nail polish on the glass itself, but I like to do it anyway because it does give off not only an extra shine to it, but it does give a bit more protection, especially if you're trying to make sure that you don't leave any fingerprints on them. And let's face it, it's probably going to get very annoying to whoever ends up owning these things. Alright? And since I can't really coat the back yet, since it's got to sit for a while, gonna leave it right there. And now for the real reason that we're here. Fun fact, if you add baking soda to super glue, it cures faster? I'll try to keep that in mind for next time. Thank you for the heads up. Anyway, obviously I pretty much preset everything, which ironically enough was exactly why I didn't do any streaming this Monday, besides life getting in the way. I basically wanted to prepare everything so this way it was easier and you guys could see at least get an idea of how to do this stuff. But let's face it, I'm still learning myself, so it's all a matter of how you look at it. Anyway, I pretty much made a rough measurements to how much I need for the faux leather, and I would recommend faux leather because not only gives it a bit more of a realistic look, but I find it's probably a better protection for the book itself, because you're using just paper or just fabric like this one that I'm going to be using for the inside of this thing. It's probably not going to last very long, especially if you're spilling your drinks or food on top of them. Also, granted, this was something of an accident, so I ended up having one board bigger than the other. So, though I ended up cutting this little piece, and this will actually work very well for at least the center of the book, like the binder's book. So, that will at least give us an idea of where to put the paper, to which I will now explain. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking for the time being, but this part is actually kind of important if you want to make your own book or want to do something like this with a relative or a kid that you happen to be related to. Sounds cruel, but that's the way it is. And obviously I already got the paper set up, another reason for the lack of streaming on Monday. And normally, at least from what I've seen on the YouTube videos for how to make these things, these paper is usually folded in half so this way you can sew the middle, but since the way I cut it made it a bit wonky, I had to make do. But it is recommended that you definitely sew the edge one side of it, so this way you can at least make sure it all stays together, especially if you're about to put it right into the book itself. Now, because we're actually going to start on, oh boy, yeah, you're going to have to forgive me. Like I said, I'm still technically learning how to do this, so, let's see. I think we are going to first glue in this green fabric to act as the inner part of the book. And I know it's usually maybe a very hard paper that people use for this, but I figured might as well give it a bit of a good feel to it. And obviously don't put too much of the glue here. And keep it pressed down, especially since this part is actually going to be for the middle. And so if you see glue coming through, that's okay. That's pretty much on purpose. And at least there's your center. Now the next part, I'll admit, when I did the other book, I actually did something different for the edges, so I'm going to try to do that again. It was really more of a way to keep everything together. Now and I forgot, I don't have, oh well, when in doubt, improvise. But long story short, I pretty much sewed the edge together with thinner fabric. A little odd, but it did actually work to at least keep it in place while I fixed it up. Now obviously, you know what, let's not do the curve, because while it is the thinnest, it's, and now I remember where I put the other stuff. Well, moments, note to self, really make sure you have everything together. So, thank God I kept this close by. Let's see, where's, not that. But let's go with this little tool bag. Yeah, long story short, I keep this on me when I go to work, because God forbid you suddenly find yourself with a torn pants or a torn shirt, you need a quick fix, so it's best to make sure you have something handy close by. And trust me when I say, this has actually been a bit of a lifesaver. Kind of like right now. Anyway, let's get this out. And try to, and I forgot to put this back. Yeah, you can see how ditzy I can be more than half the time. I'll just put that there for now. Make sure it's out of the way. Now this is a little tricky since I'm trying to keep everything in place so this way I know exactly where it's supposed to go, especially since it's still if I probably move from the spot, I'm probably going to lose it, but at least this way it's not going to suddenly fall away from me, if that makes sense. Now this is actually going to be just a basic of one stitch, because this isn't going to be a settled thing. It's more like keeping it in place. There we go. Now let's see, what time is it? 5:26. Now, so that you guys know, I will still be trying to keep this only to about an hour. I mean, as you'll probably hear, I've got the fan going in the background. But then again, it's pretty close to summer, if it's not already, so it's going to happen either way. But even if with the fan on, I'd rather not overwhelm my computer. And especially since, not only that, but granted, I don't remember if Fox is supposed to be having a stream today or not, but best to make sure that I don't end up stealing his audience. Enough said. Alright. There we go. Yeah, by the way, if you're gonna hold your, oh, thank you, Avian. I'll still probably try to keep it to an hour at most. But, yeah, if, obviously you're seeing me keeping this in my mouth, but if you do that, make absolutely certain that you're not pressing or biting into the pointer. It's not exactly the safest thing. I usually keep it between my lips so this way, no saliva on the needle, and, keeps my mouth from being pierced. And there. That's one side done. Now Bill just cut. There we go. Okay, at least that's one side done, for the most part, at least for making sure it stays marked, so to speak. Like I said, the sewing part isn't exactly a permanent thing, it's more like a keeping what you want in place. At least that's what I did for the last book. We can rate him. Not a bad idea, though. I have yet to figure out how to do that, but we'll see what happens at the end of this stream. There we go. And for the other side, and I do apologize if you guys are getting a little bored with this. I don't exactly blame you. I mean, heck, usually I'm pretty quiet and I listen to music or something in the background, which kind of makes the whole crafting thing much more relaxing if you think about it. But I also, admittedly, if the mood hits me and I want to at least listen to something as I'm doing this, I may even sometimes put on maybe a movie or a video that's like one of those, it's okay, but more like perfect for noise in the background. And there are quite a few films out there that, at least in my opinion, are like that. So there may be some decent movies that you might like, but you don't want to watch it 24/7. This is what I would at least suggest you might like to do if you're in the mood for a movie but don't actually want to watch it. But again, that's my opinion. Anyway, here we go. And at least we've got the basis of the book sewn up on the inside. But now we have to, at least in my case, figure out how to do the inside, which is basically the corner. But before that, I also need to, shoot, did I? Ah, sweet nipples. I knew I was getting something. Thank God I kept the stupid bag. That I kept everything else nearby. Not exactly perfect, but if you have a system and it works for you, at least it works for you. And obviously this is all the extra faux leather and glue and everything else I've got in here. But yeah, at least before I probably continue with the putting the faux leather to the wood, I should probably also add holes for the little corners as I did with this book here. Like I said, I figured it gives it a bit more style, so this way it looks nicer. Enough said. Well, plus it also keeps the corners much more enforced. At least that's my opinion. And these are actually rivets that are often used for maybe scrapbooking and maybe leather bindings for whatever crafters might use for them. But anyway, I'm going to be using these for this book, but before I can use that, I need to use a deluxe rotary hole puncher. At least that's what it's called on the box. And this is actually very handy, even if you're not just using it for the leather, faux leather. It does somewhat work on the fabrics as well, though I would not entirely recommend it unless you're doing it just making a quick hole so this way you can get something through. Anyway,